Welcome to my video blog. So this week's been quite an interesting week because I've been to see Bryan Adams in concert. And not that I like Bryan Adams, I find him mildly boring, but the concert was great. But I went because of my wife, and building into her emotional bank account, she loves Bryan Adams, and she loves kind of Australian rock and roll, country rock is what she likes, and Bryan Adams provides much of that. I'm amazed how many hits he's had over the years, and everything I do it for you is when it's on the radio, my son and I, he cries, I shed an invisible tear, because that's what my wife wants at her funeral played. And so it was concerts are not memorable, but they are refreshing. They're like a boat trip, you do it and you I don't know, you tend not to remember much of it, but feel like it's been a refreshing week. We started this week off, me and my leadership team and operations director, and trying to work out the ebb and the flow of 2009. Had to look at the date there for a second, 2009. The rhythm of a year, because this year seems to have had a little rhythm to it. We've had guest speakers come in and we've promoted stuff that has slightly come in the way of stuff we originally intended to promote, and we've had to cancel a few things and we've changed some things around, and I really don't want to do that next year. And I am a control freak, or I like my ducks in a row. That's a gift. Control freakery can sometimes lead to high anxiety on behalf of the giver and the receiver, but we've got the whole year. We need to map out properly when our conferences are going to be, when our offerings are going to be, when our special retreats are going to be, etc., etc., in order to produce a year where you're not having to advertise 3 things at once and then miss out on 2 out of 3 or 1 out of 3. I want everything to be a hit. I guess that's really what I want to do. I want everything we do to be a hit, not a miss. And I don't have to change the schedule halfway through. So we've been working about the rhythm of 2009 so that we can enjoy the road trip, have an enjoyable year, everything becomes a hit, only promoting one thing at once. So that's what I've been up to earlier this week. And at the same time, as I've been doing that, Russell Brand has resigned from BBC Radio 2, and Jonathan Ross has been suspended, and the controller of BBC Radio 2 has resigned, and it's a really interesting thing. Our society is very schizophrenic. On one side, for years now, it's turned a blind eye to the corruption of the airways, and turned a blind eye to people saying stuff that's so smutty, that's so perverted, that's so sexually charged, and it goes on the Jonathan Ross show, etc., etc., etc. And all of a sudden someone says something that's too edgy, and remember, they're paid for edginess, and now there's a witch hunt. And I'm in favour of cleaning up the BBC and cleaning up the airways. I don't want it to become dowdy and lack personality. I like the personality of Jonathan Ross, just not some of the stuff that comes out. I like part of the personality of Russell Brand. I admire his confidence. I admire his courageous wit. And so, I want to preserve some of that, but at the same time put everything through a filter in order to preserve society. Just corruption corrupts, there's no doubt about it. So when people go way off the edge, it just takes our society way off the edge. But what interests me is the schizophrenic nature of our society. If you put every mental illness in a bucket and shake it around, our society is going to mirror that. And so it's autistic. It turns a blind eye. It's got some blind spots in its vision. It's got dual personalities. It wants to be democratic at the same time. It wants to maintain integrity. It wants the will of the masses at the same time. So it's really torn. And here's an example of the tear of let's clean everything up on the back of one event and one thing said out of line. And yet there's been thousands of things I've heard on the television that have been just as bad as what's been said this week on the radio. So I just think this is our society. It's got multiple personalities. It's got tradition, it's got righteousness, it's got values, and it's got edginess, and it's got carnality, and it's going to constantly unite then fracture, and it's done that over centuries. It's great to be involved in slave trading, and then all of a sudden, no, this thing's wrong. It suddenly comes to its senses. And so here's a little moment of clarity for the BBC after years of muckiness. And but I kind of feel sorry for Jonathan Ross, but at the same time feel like he's as guilty as ever in allowing this stuff to come through our airways and come through across on television. But anyway, I'm not here to preach, so that wasn't preaching. I'm here to rant. That was a bit of ranting, and like my new jumper, and it's because I'm always wearing the blue one, and if you go track back, and that's because that's what I wear, just slobbing around the house and that. So I've put on a fresh new jumper for you today, and for the millions of viewers of Dave Gilpin's video blog. And so admire, I'm about to go, and so have a great weekend. 4 weeks till our fabulous conference. So if you are around in the UK, I've got two of the greatest speakers. Wayne Alcon from Australia, part of the leadership team of the Australian Christian Churches, just a brilliant speaker, and Dr. Teo Adiyami from London, just two of the most awesome speakers that you'll ever hear. And it's time for change. You need to be regularly reinvented. It's a conference to reinvent, and you are going to absolutely love it. That's it for promotions. See you soon. Bye. Au revoir.